All right, the first image that we're going to look at is a linga, which is also on your textbook. Linga is a standing up phallus. It symbolizes the power, a phallus in the state of erection releases power, and it's that kind of form Hindu would regard as omniscient, as a powerful God, as energy, as full of energy. And that's just one state of Shiva. Out of total 3 states, Shiva was believed to be born out of a linga. Right, this is a Shiva's head, and then later became a kind of human figure form that we're going to get to later. So that's why we see in a lot of Hindu temples they still worship, and there are many temples that specifically built for a linga. For example, I can show you right now, which is a image that we're gonna get to later. Linga Raja, the lore of Linga temple. And then Vishnu and Ganesha. These are the 3 major deities in Hinduism. And as I said, Hinduism has very ancient roots, but only began to assume its mature form in the 4th century CE. It kind of drew a lot of, pay attention to this, it drew a lot of resources from the Vedic deities. Vedic, V-E-D-I-C, the Vedic deities. What is that? Well, we're going to get to that at the very last slide when we talk about Vedas. And also some Vedic texts. So it drew a lot of inspiration, a lot of sources from those local roots. So these deities appears also. It's not the Hinduism original. It came from local sources, Indian sources. Okay, so we have this linga right here, and as I said, this is another state of a Shiva, which is in 3 roles, both a creator of life and destroyer of evil forces. And this one shows, shows the Shiva, the deity Shiva, sitting on the peak of Mount Kailasha, Mount Kailasha, which is another term we're going to get to when we get to Ellora. That's what makes, so all these cultures, all these symbols, they kind of intertwine with each other, and that's what makes it complicated. Okay, let's get back to our images for now. So Shiva sitting on top of the Mount Kailasha and meditates on the nature of the universe to kind of tame the evil forces, to tame the world. And he's sitting with a yogic posture, meditating on top of the nature. What's the point of that? What's the point of that meditation? In union with the nature, in communication with the universe, for the people, for the world, for whoever, because, well, he's the most powerful anyway. And if that pose is of any familiarity to you, you are right. That's the origin of yoga. And actually yoga means in Indian, in Sanskrit actually, which is Sanskrit, it's actually the sacred, it's been throughout the history been regarded as the most sacred texts in India, Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, yoga means union, right? Have peace with the world, meditate. Some of you actually share in the things from Asia, that from India, that this is yoga is something that that first came to mind, and that is it, right? That is the one for you, for those of you who raised this example. Yoga. And this is the linga. This is right after the ritual. People worship. People contribute to the linga, which is the deity Shiva, so that Shiva can kill all the evil forces for them. And this linga is actually, when you go to the Asian Art Museum, which is required for you, and you also asked to write a journal for it. So usually you start on the first floor, on the third floor, in the exhibition, and when you upon entering the door of the first floor, you would find a linga right there. And if that interests you, you can take a closer look at that linga in person. And Shiva in another form, which is dancing. So the name Shiva as Lord of Dance, Nataraja in Sanskrit. Well, Nata means dance or performance, and Raja means king or lord. And that's why I just showed you the temple. The name is Raja, it's Linga Raja temple, and you know what it means now, and you know a little bit of Sanskrit right now. Well, Shiva's dancing form. He's the first, because he's the first dancer, believed to be the first dancer who sets the universe in motion by just dancing. He's dancing so hard, actually. You can see how does the craftsman show you that someone's dancing really hard? Well, think about that. To create art, right? We're talking about, how about the hair in this case? How about the hair flying to the side to show you how hard he's rocking, his moving in the space, and within the flame, right? The halo of flame. And the hair flying to the side suggests huge energy in his dance. Otherwise, how can he? Well, he's the god, he's the deity. Only he has these powers to shake the world, to shake his dance, to make the move. And it's in this also, usually in Hinduism, you will find a lot of time the deities are portrayed with many arms or legs sometimes, and different arms just shows they have extra power. They're more versatile in dealing with things. They're more powerful, all in all. And in this case, the three arms also shows the three-in-one image. Shiva as a creator of life, as a destroyer, as a preserver of energy. For example, you see this hand is holding the flame that will destroy the universe, or the evil forces, and this hand, front left hand, pointing downwards, is signifying refuge for the troubled soul, the preserver. And the gesture that allays fear, this one, to kind of calm down, hold on. And then we have this drum, this hourglass-like hand drum that made the first sound of the creation, creator of the life. 3 roles in one. It's kind of like those business cards that you would give to people. They put a lot of people, if they like to show off, they put a lot of title on their business card, and it's kind of like that. Shiva is a busy man. He takes care of many positions and takes care of them really well. That is the Shiva. You see, he's also containing that evil forces right before your eyes. So that's the image of Shiva dancing. You find that very popular even in houses, in museums, in very very prevalent in India. So that's one storytelling of a deity in Hinduism. How about a more narrative? How about more grandiose storytelling of Hinduism? Well, when it gets to more grandiose, not any individual might be able to order or to complete just by him or herself. It takes more than that. It takes more than a workshop. It might, right, for a project as big as this one, for a storytelling as big as this one, it takes sometimes a king, sometimes a court, sometimes the highest authority to complete this huge project. Well, these two boulders, there are two natural boulders, they are right here. They are right here off the coast in the Pallava dynasty, and this serves as a port city. The Mamallapuram, Puram means city, and also this is another name, Mahabalipuram. Nowadays it's so named, but its name before it was named Mamallapuram, and it tells a story of we're not sure yet. This is what comes interesting, right? Now we figure out the patronage is from the king, the Pallava king, who patronized this huge relief. For what? Okay, let's analyze the image and figure out, right? For what reason? First of all, scholars figured this relief could be a story telling of showing either the descent of the Ganges, right? The Ganges River, it's arid land before, and then the god of water, god of river, Ganga. That's where Ganges River got its name from. The Ganga kind of begs Shiva, the deity, the most powerful deity, that to let the water from heaven come down to the earth to water those arid land in India. So a story could be the descent of Ganges, or it could be Ajana's penance. Ajana is one of the warriors from one of the epics called Arjuna, and Arjuna was fighting with his cousins. Right, this is a story from Mahabharata, the epic story, and he kind of figured out a way to go into the jungle and meditate, and became ascetic, and then kind of met in a hunting game, met the deity again, Shiva, and begged Shiva to offer him the most powerful weapons, and then to fight his cousin so that he can save India, save the world. So the story works like that. But people are not sure, scholars are not sure which story it really aligned with. But we see, elephants from India, we see some warriors fighting, and when we're gonna do some close-ups, and we actually see this is a cat standing with one leg, and we have, let's give you a better image. We have all these mice kind of surrounding it, kind of paying homage to the cat. But this is really a kind of like a pun, this one, because the mice later, they're gonna be eaten by the cat. And why do they worship the cat? This is kind of like really comic scene right there. But anyway, let's get back to that scene right there. I'm talking about this scene because this is the major scene that determines what story it really goes. Right? This is Shiva for sure. No question asked. People figured this is the image of the Shiva because the different arms, right? The many arms that he has. But is this the Ganga or is this the ascetic? You can see the ribs, right? So he's the ascetic person. If this is the Ganga begging Shiva to bring the water, to allow the water to come down, or if this is Ajana, the warrior begging Shiva to give him the most powerful weapon, that we are not sure. And people are guessing, scholars are guessing, this might actually be intended to be both narratives, to be a double narrative, which means to be either way. Right? It's when people read it, it's both Shiva allowing the water to come down, right? In the monsoon season, when the rain comes, there's actually water falling down, trickling down through all the serpents looking deities to the ground to symbolize that Ganges River coming down to earth. And these elephants, sacred animals in Hinduism in India, come to drink the water, and everybody is very happy ever after. That really prosperous, happy, peaceful scene that's created. And this scene is really complicated. I mean, Shiva, it can be a double narrative, it can be Ajana or a Ganga, and it could be, and it also some kind of comic ingredient to it. People might laugh in front of it, and other maybe patrons, lay people being portrayed, other kinds of animal, lions that appeal to Buddhism, right? Sacred animal in Buddhism, which is a lion. I mean, why does it have to be so complicated? Well, people say, it's likely to be intended by the king, since it's king's patronage. It's intended by the Pallava king. He intended this to be for everybody, for all walks of audience. Lay people, Hindus, people from the court, higher class, lower class, they read into it things that that they can relate to. Lay people relate to the comic scene. People of higher class relate to the different the story of Shiva, so that one boulder, one scene can speak to the most audience, speak to everybody. Why do you want it to speak to everybody? Think about this. This is king's patronage, and it shows king's power to relate himself, to associate himself to Hinduism, to a religion that practiced by most of the people in India. And people are looking at it and associating the king with Hinduism. So believing in the religion equals to believing in the king. Believing in the king equals to believing in the king's power equals to believing in his governing, his authority. That's how you govern. That's why you patronize religious scenes, narrative, because you want to, as a leader, as a politician, witty as they are, they want to, one way or another, incorporate themselves in the religion, in things that people normally would believe in. If you remember the Ashokan dynasty, if you remember the Buddhism, how Ashoka utilize Buddhism to rule India. You might find some resonance in this scene too. Did you? Well, that we've talked about this. Okay, next we're gonna talk about why so diverse, why so complicated, why do I have to speak to so many different layers of people, layers of classes. Well, that's because India was diverse by nature. Geographically, it was many natural barriers kind of separate different cultural groups. This is a plateau in this plain where the early cities, Harappan culture came from. Ganges River flows through this plain right here. And to the southern side, we have the peninsula south. And the percentage of population vary quite a bit. For example, to the southern side, there might be more merchants benefiting from or profiting from the maritime trade route going along the coasts. So there might be more merchants. And because in Indian society, merchants were ranked in a kind of relatively lower class. Because Hinduism, there are classes in Hinduism, the priests being at the highest class and merchant being at kind of a relatively lower. So the merchant might appeal to Buddhism more. Even they believe in Hinduism, they have their own form of worshipping Hinduism so that they don't get squeezed out, right? So that's why. And these are the 4 macro regions in India. And that explains why things take so many different forms and the kings wants to speak to many different people. Okay, very briefly about Hindu temple. And as I said, it's diverse, so temple style varies. Northern style is beehive, southern style, the Pallava dynasty area. It's more of a square shape, pyramidal shape, pointing upwards, and it kind of one element is taller than the other until it gets the Gebrat. How do I pronounce it? Geberia. The Geberia, which is a space to house that deity image, be it sculpture, be it just an image, be it a relief on the rock. And the worshippers, they would go a long way, go up the steps, travel all the way, go in there, and sometimes circumambulate to meditate, and sometimes worship the deities within. And or they might just stay outside of this temple to worship, because the temple, it works kind of like a womb. In fact, Gabaria, the name of it, actually means a womb in Sanskrit. It's kind of like a womb of that deity, of that divine spirit. So the temple as a whole is holy by itself. Lingaraja temple, northern style, one layer, right? It ascends from one layer to another, beehive shaped all the way to the top. And we have a courtyard for people to gather. Although for Hinduism, people don't really gather, but for people to gather at or around this temple, waiting to go inside and circumambulate and worship. And that's how the ritual goes, usually. And you get it. These are different forms of it, and I have in the notes the different functions of these space, the different spaces, and you can read about it. That's a bird's eye view of the Lingaraja temple with all these divine animals guarding the temple, guarding the Garbhagriha. And then the southern part of it, it takes a different form, a more square shape, graduated tower with multiple layered pavilion, also called the Dravidian style. This is the southern part, which is a part that there are more merchants than there are priests. And you see they're so elaborate and heavily embellished. The reason being the merchants, right? Those merchants, they participate in the patronage. It's not just the kings patronizing all these temples, but the merchants started to participate in this patronizing, started to gain status in the society. And so lay people, merchants, they contribute to the temple and building more and more decorative. Okay, that's Hinduism. So we're gonna travel to one site in India where all three religions cross path with each other. That's Ellora. At Ellora, those granite hills, very fitting for rock-cut stupas, for rock-cut caves. So people, craftsmen, kings come over here to order projects to excavate caves and temples out of those rocks. Buddhists came and do this, and in fact, Buddhists were actually the earliest group of people, the from the 5th century. Starting from the 5th century, started to carve caves in here. This is very reminiscent of what we talked about, the Ajanta, in week 2, the Ajanta cave. You have the stupa, the Buddha, the worshipper coming in. This is kind of half semi-domical, semi-doom hallway, and with all these different pillars surrounding it. This is what we call the Chaitya Buddhism at Ellora. There's also Jainism at Ellora. This is one of the Jinna being portrayed. Jinna is naked because Jainism believes the more you associate with you, the heavier you are, the deeper you fall, you sink. So it's better to be naked, not only physically, but it's better to even be naked mentally. Right? This is a Jinna because he's all empty, so he's rising to the very top, which is the heaven, right? So this is the depiction of Jainism at Cave 32 in Ellora. But of course, there's also Hinduism being carved out, being created out of all these rocks. This is a hill. This is a hillside, and this is a temple, an entire temple being carved out of a hill, the foot of the hill. This is called the Kailasha temple. The name came from that sacred mountain where Shiva Do you remember Shiva doing all the meditation to tame the world, to meditate, to in union with the world, with that yogic posture? Remember? That's meditating on top of Kailasha mountain. And this is Kailasha temple, getting the name from that sacred mountain for Hinduism. And what style? Southern or northern style is this Ellora Kailasha temple? You tell me. Oh, I leave some notes in the slides, so if you can download the slides, and so that I don't need to repeat uh, the things that I jot down. Oh, by the way, it's near Ajanta actually. This site, Ellora, it's actually near Ajanta in the Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau right here. Oh, and by the way, please use the slides that I uploaded as a kind of review for this lecture. It's for your convenience. Elephant from Hinduism holding up the temple, being used as the pillar that holds up the Gabariya. This is the Gabariya. This is where the linga. This is where the divine image was stored. People will go up here to the hill and circumambulate this entire temple to worship it. And all the Buddhism caves, Jainism caves, as well as this Kailasha temple, the Hinduism temple carved out of a rock. This is a huge project. No, this is just a mountain, just a hill, and they carved the entire temple out of it. There's no wooden structure, it's all rock, natural rock from this. This is a huge project, and of course, it's the royal patronage, and actually, the Hindu patron employed the same artisans as the Buddhist figure sculptures. And that's why the design of Hinduism, the design of Buddhism and Jainism, they cross paths in many ways. Some of the images are pretty identical to each other because they hire the same people to work on different projects, to serve different religion. And it's believed at this Ellora that the craftsmen, they don't very much have a preference of, they're not pretty devout in just one religion. They're pretty open-minded to different images. Whoever hires me, I'm gonna design for them, I'm gonna carve, participate in the project for them. That's how interesting it gets. I think this is something I've already mentioned before in Buddhism, in the designing of the iconic image of the Buddha. It's the artisans. They worked on the Buddha image for a while, and they worked on the Jainism image Jinnah for a while, and then they also work on the Hindu images, Shiva, for example, for a while. So you will see a lot of elements. They share all these elements. Well, when we talk about Hinduism, of course, Shiva is a focus, is a protagonist being portrayed. And this is in this cave, Kailasha temple, we found Shiva. This is the image of Shiva destroying the demon and Haka. This is Shiva subduing the Ravana, the demon Ravana. And Shiva is being portrayed uh, in company with his wife, Parvati, and this is the demon Ramana, right? Containing all those evil forces. And this Shiva trying to destroy, and with many arms, and so that he can hold many different weapons. He's so ferocious, and it just shows that this is not an easy task to kill the demon. And it is also in this Ellora temple, this Kalaisha temple, that we found a panel, what we call the Ramayana panel, a panel that describes, not originally from Hinduism, but a epic from long ago in India, the Ramayana story, the epic that tells about a story of Rama, how he's brave and selfless, and kind of kills the demon Ravana, and also sacrifice himself. That kind of heroic story, kind of like Odysseus in the Odyssey, in the Iliad and Odyssey, heroic portraiture of a figure. And that predates Hinduism. But Hinduism actually incorporates that story, that heroic story, into itself, so that people outside of Hinduism, they can also relate, to think, Hinduism, it's in one way or another part of us, or I'm actually part of that storytelling, right? And that's how Hinduism kind of constantly rejuvenate itself, renew itself, incorporating things local, incorporating things that interest people, to attract more and more worshippers. So Ramayana, that's one epic. Another even much longer epic in India that predates Hinduism is the Mahabharata. This is a Mahabharata panel right here, which tells another story about Arjuna. Do you remember Arjuna? This is Arjuna, right? Possibly Arjuna. The Mahabharata story goes, Arjuna fights with his cousins, and finally, getting that weapon, that really powerful weapon from Shiva, being able to contain his other cousins, and return from exile, kind of save the dynasty. That kind of savior's storytelling. Hinduism incorporates that into their storytelling, and telling people, see, that's part of our deities. That's also something that we worship. We are from local. We are closer to you than you think. That's what Hinduism is trying to tell their people. More than that, Hinduism drew its inspiration from a lot of things local. For example, the Vedas. I think in your textbook, let me see, page 9. In the textbook, page 9, you have that kind of introduction of the Veda. What is that? It's just some kind of sacred text from long ago, from which gives a lot of information about the Aryan, the kind of ancestor of India, and basically Vedas means a collection of knowledge. Different knowledge about the places, one knowledge being a caste system, being that a society by nature would have different classes. At the top are the Brahmins, which are the priests, scholars who can communicate with the heaven, with the deities, with the gods. And then we have the warriors. That comes second. And then we have the Vaishya, which is the merchants. They're kind of lower class. And then we have the artisans, the laborers. And there is even some group out of this caste, out of this caste system, out of this hierarchical class system, what we call the Adivasis. And that explains, right? This Vedas kind of lay out how the society can work and would work. And then Hinduism incorporates that caste system into their rules, into their belief. But Hinduism, besides that, also incorporates epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, which is also the elite texts, into their beliefs. And from the Ramayana and Mahabharata, we see the earlier description, the early narrative of how karma works. What is karma? Well, if I hit you today, sometime in the future, I'll be hit. If I do good things in this life and next life, I might be able to ascend to higher level to be treated better. That's karma. And this kind of cycle, way of thinking was embedded in these two epics. And Hinduism incorporates that into their beliefs. Hinduism incorporates the caste system into their beliefs too. And that's why sometimes the merchants, they're not too of a big fan of the Hinduism, let alone the Adivasi, who don't even have any status, who's outside of this class system, of this caste system. Okay, so that's how Hinduism drew inspiration, incorporates contents, local, into their own preaching, so the designing of the continuously updating and designing of the religion itself, can be regarded as a very good way of preaching, of renewing, of rejuvenating the religion itself. At the beginning of the lecture, in the introduction of this module, I asked you one question. Right? Last week's we talked about why do we need religions? How does it survive? How do people utilize religion? And this week we think about how does a religion keep rejuvenating itself, keep renewing itself so that it doesn't go out of date, doesn't go out of fashion. And I hope this lecture answers a little bit of that question. Thank you very much.